The notification came in at 11:43 on a Tuesday night. I remember the time because I'd just gotten home from my second job hostessing at a restaurant downtown, and I was sitting on the edge of my bed pulling off my shoes when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I assumed it was my friend texting about weekend plans. I almost didn't look at it. It was a voice message. From my dad. 11 seconds long. I hit play. What I heard wasn't meant for me. I could tell immediately because my dad's voice wasn't talking to me, he was talking about me. And he was laughing. That low, comfortable laugh he does when he's relaxed, when he thinks no one outside the room is listening. I heard my mom in the background, my younger sister Tiffany, my brother Marcus. All of them. Together, probably at the kitchen table after dinner, the way they always used to sit when I still lived there. And my dad said, clear as anything, Natalie's always going to be there. That's just who she is. She doesn't know how to say no. Then my mom. She does it because she wants to feel needed. Then laughter. All of them. I sat there on the edge of my bed with one shoe still on, and I listened to 11 seconds of my family deciding who I was, what I was worth, what I was for. Then the message ended. I didn't cry. That surprised me, honestly. I just sat there in the quiet of my apartment, my very small, very plain apartment that I'd chosen specifically because the rent was low enough that I could still send money home every month. And I thought, okay, so that's what this is. Let me back up, because none of this makes sense without the context. I'm Natalie. I'm 31 years old. I'm a paralegal at a mid-size firm in Columbus, Ohio, and for the last 6 years, almost exactly 6 years, I have been the financial backbone of my family. Not because anyone asked me to be. Not because there is some formal agreement. It just sort of happened. The way these things do, when you're the oldest, when you're the responsible one, when you're the one who always picks up the phone. It started when my dad lost his job in 2019. He'd been a project manager at a logistics company for 11 years, and then one day he wasn't. The severance was 2 months. The job search stretched into 5. By month 3, my parents were behind on the mortgage, and they called me. Not to ask for help, specifically, just to tell me. But I heard the strain in my mom's voice, and I said, without really thinking it through, I can cover it this month. Don't worry about it. That was $1,740. I thought it was a one-time thing. It wasn't. My dad found work eventually, but it was a step down. Less pay, no benefits to speak of. My mom had always worked part-time at a daycare, never more than 20 hours a week because someone had to be home for Marcus and Tiffany, even though at that point Marcus was 19 and Tiffany was 17. Nobody really questioned that logic. I didn't either. Back then. So the gap between what my parents made and what they needed, the mortgage, the car payments, the utilities, the groceries, that gap became something I quietly filled. Not every month, but enough months that it became assumed, expected, built into the architecture of our family without anyone officially acknowledging it. Over 3 years, I did the math once. The real math, not the fuzzy version I kept in my head so I didn't have to feel bad about it. Transfers to my parents' account, $38,400. Tiffany's car insurance, which I paid directly because she was on my plan, $4,200 over 2 years. Marcus's community college tuition for 3 semesters, because he said he'd pay me back once he got a full-time job, $6,800. He never got the full-time job, $6,800. He never got the full-time job. Or rather, he got it and just never mentioned paying me back. Almost $50,000. Over 3 years. While I was living in a 400-square-foot apartment with a futon and a second-hand dresser. But here's the thing nobody tells you about giving money to your family. It doesn't feel like money. It feels like love. It feels like you're doing what a good daughter does, what a good sister does. Every time my mom said, I don't know what we'd do without you, I felt warm in a way I'm not entirely proud of now. I was useful. I was necessary. I mattered. I didn't see it clearly then. I do now. The thing that changed, before the voice message, was my brother's situation with the car. Marcus had been driving a 2014 Honda Civic that my dad had co-signed on, but my dad's credit took a hit when he was unemployed and missed 2 credit card payments, so technically the loan was struggling and Marcus kept falling behind. The car note was $387 a month. 1 month Marcus paid it, the next he didn't, and the third month my dad called me and said they were worried it was going to get repossessed. I said I'd cover it for a few months while Marcus got sorted out. That was 8 months ago. I was still paying it. Marcus, in those same 8 months, had bought a new gaming setup, a weekend trip to Nashville with his friends. New Jordans, which I know because he posted them on Instagram. He wasn't broke. He just knew the bill was covered. I noticed. I didn't say anything. Because what do you say? Hey, I see you're not actually struggling? That felt petty. That felt like I was keeping score. So I kept paying and kept my mouth shut and told myself it wasn't about the money, it was about family. That voice message cured me of that particular story I was telling myself. After I listened to it, after I sat on my bed for what must have been 20 minutes just staring at the wall, I played it again. I wanted to make sure I hadn't misheard something, hadn't taken it out of context. I hadn't. The full clip was my dad telling a story about how he'd mentioned to his brother, my uncle, that I'd been helping out, and my uncle apparently said I was a good kid. And my dad had responded, laughing, "She's always going to be there. That's just who she is. She doesn't know how to say no." And then my mom added her part and Tiffany said something I couldn't quite catch, and everyone laughed again. 11 seconds. My entire sense of what our relationship was flipped completely over. I think what hurt the most wasn't the words. It was how comfortable they were, how easy. Like this was a known fact in our household. Natalie will always come through. Natalie can't say no. Natalie needs to feel needed. And everyone had just quietly agreed on it years ago and never thought to tell me. I was the last to know the role I'd been cast in. I put my phone face down on the nightstand. I finished taking my shoes off. I lay down on my futon, my actual futon, not even a real bed frame. Because I kept telling myself I'd upgrade next year, and I stared at the ceiling for a long time. I did not call them. I did not text. I did not say anything at all. I just started thinking. Here's what was interesting about the next few days. Nobody noticed. My mom texted me a meme on Wednesday. My dad texted about some show he was watching. Marcus sent a TikTok. Tiffany asked if I could look over her resume because she was applying for a retail job. Normal. All of it completely normal. Because for them nothing had changed. The dynamic was intact. I was still, in their minds, exactly who I'd always been. I looked over Tiffany's resume. I sent her some notes. But I'd already started making decisions that nobody knew about yet. The first thing I did was call my bank. I had a recurring transfer set up, $600 a month to my parents' account, which had started as a temporary thing to help with the mortgage deficit and become permanent over 2 years. $600 a month, $7,200 a year. Just sitting there as an automatic transfer, like a subscription I'd never canceled. I canceled it. Then I logged into the account where I was paying Marcus's car note and I removed the payment. Just like that. Took about 4 minutes. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't send a long text explaining my feelings. I didn't call a family meeting. I just stopped. And then I waited. The call came on the 3rd of the month, which is when my parents' mortgage is due. It was my mom. She was confused at first. Just checking in, she said, because the transfer hadn't come through and she was wondering if there was a problem with my bank. I said, "No, Mom, there's no problem. I canceled it." Silence. "What do you mean you canceled it?" "I mean, I'm not sending that transfer anymore. I've been doing it for 2 years and I need to stop." More silence. Then, very carefully, "Natalie, we're counting on that for the mortgage." And I said, and I'm proud of how calm I was, "I know. I'm sorry the timing isn't ideal, but I can't keep doing this." She asked if something was wrong. I said no, not exactly. She asked if I was upset about something. I paused for just a second and said, "I've been doing a lot of thinking about what I need right now, and I need to be focusing on my own finances." That was all I said. No mention of the voice message. Not then. She was quiet for a long moment, and then she said, "I'll talk to your father." "Okay," I said. "Good luck." I hung up and sat in my office bathroom for about 5 minutes just breathing. Then I went back to my desk and kept working. The next 2 weeks were something I can only describe as turbulent, but in a one-sided way. Turbulent for them, quiet for me. My dad called that evening. He was more direct than my mom, which I expected. He said they'd budgeted around that transfer and this wasn't a great time to make changes. I said I understood, and that I was sorry for the short notice, but I needed to make this change for myself. He pushed a little. I held the line. Eventually, he said he'd figure it out, in a tone that implied this was an unreasonable burden I was placing on him, and we hung up. Marcus called 3 days later, the day after the car payment didn't go through. He wasn't quite as measured as my parents. He wanted to know what was going on, why I'd suddenly just stopped, whether I was going through something. I told him I was making some changes to my budget and that he'd need to take over his own car payment going forward. He said he wasn't sure he could swing it right now. I said I understood and that I was sure he'd work something out. He did not take that well. He told me it was messed up to just pull back like this without any warning. I almost said it right then. The voice message, the 11 seconds, all of it, but I didn't. I just said, I've been covering it for 8 months, Marcus. That was never supposed to be permanent. We're family, he said. I let that sit in the air between us for a moment. Yeah, I said, we are. And then I let him go. Tiffany was the last one to reach out, and her approach was the one that actually got to me a little. Not because she was mean, she was almost sweet about it, which was somehow harder. She texted me on a Thursday night after I'd gotten home from work, and she said she didn't really understand what was happening, but that she missed me and hoped I was okay. I sat with that text for a long time. Because Tiffany wasn't the one who said anything on that recording. She was there, but I couldn't make out her voice clearly. And she's the youngest. She grew up watching the same dynamic I did, the same lesson that Natalie handles things. Natalie takes care of it. Call Natalie. She'd absorbed it without questioning it, the same way you absorb any family truth when you're young. I texted her back. I told her I was fine, that I loved her, and that I was going through a personal restructuring of some things. I said we should get lunch sometime soon, just the two of us. She said she'd like that. I meant it too. The moment I told the truth came about 3 weeks after the voice message, and it wasn't planned. My dad called again on a Sunday afternoon. He'd found a solution for the mortgage. They were going to refinance, which would lower the monthly payment, but he was frustrated and he wanted me to understand what a disruption this had caused. He went through the whole thing. The calls to the bank, the paperwork, the stress on my mom, and somewhere in the middle of it he said, not unkindly but not kindly either, I don't know why you'd pull the rug out like this without even giving us a chance to prepare. And I said, Dad, can I tell you something? He said yes. 3 weeks ago you sent me a voice message by accident. It was 11 seconds, and what I heard was you telling Uncle Ray that I don't know how to say no, and Mom agreeing, and everyone laughing about it. He went very quiet. I've been thinking about it every day since then, I said. Not because it destroyed me, but because it clarified something. You all have a story about who I am in this family, and I was the last one to know what that story was. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, Natalie, that wasn't, I'm not calling to fight, I said. I just wanted you to know why, because I think you deserve to know, and because I didn't want to carry it alone anymore. More silence. Then, quietly, I'm sorry you heard that. Not I'm sorry I said it. Not that isn't how we see you. Just, I'm sorry you heard it. I noticed. But I didn't correct him. I know, Dad, I said. I love you. I'll talk to you soon. And I hung up. That was 4 months ago. A lot has happened since then, and some of it surprised me. My parents refinanced and their mortgage payment actually dropped by $210 that month, which means the gap wasn't as dire as everyone made it sound. My dad picked up a weekend gig, doing consulting work for a former colleague. My mom increased her hours at the daycare to full-time, something she'd been saying she couldn't do for years, but somehow found a way to do once the cushion was gone. Marcus took over his car payment. He was late once and caught up the next month. The car didn't get repossessed. It turned out he could swing it after all. I used the $600 a month I'd been sending home and put it in a high-yield savings account. In 4 months, that's $2,400 I've saved that I wouldn't have had otherwise. I started shopping for a real bed frame. I bought one, nothing fancy, a simple clean from IKEA, and I put it together myself on a Saturday afternoon with a podcast playing in the background. And when I was done, I sat on it and thought, this is mine. I bought this for me. It sounds small. It wasn't. The lunch with Tiffany happened about 6 weeks after everything. We went to a Thai place near her apartment and we sat for almost 3 hours. She'd heard versions of what happened from my parents and from Marcus, all framed around my pulling back and being difficult. She'd been worried about me. I told her the truth. All of it. The money, the years, the math I'd done, and the 11-second voice message. She cried a little. Not dramatically, just quietly, the way you do when something lands that you weren't prepared for. I didn't know how much you were carrying, she said. I know, I said. Neither did I, honestly, not really. We talked about the family stuff, the way we both grew up watching certain things get handled certain ways, the lessons we absorb without noticing. She said she'd been thinking about her own patterns too, how she'd always just assumed things would be taken care of without asking who was doing the taking care. She wasn't defensive about it, she was just honest. That lunch felt like the first real conversation we'd had in years, maybe ever. I paid for my half. She paid for hers. Nobody assumed anything. My relationship with my parents is different now. I don't know exactly what to call what it is. We talk. The calls are shorter, but in some ways more honest. My dad made a joke about the voice message once. Not a mean joke. More of an uncomfortable attempt to dissolve the weight of it. And I didn't laugh, but I didn't make it a whole thing either. We're navigating something new and neither of us has a map. My mom surprised me. About 2 months after everything settled, she called one evening and said, without preamble, "I've been thinking about what you said to your dad. About the story we had about you." A pause. "I think you are right. I think we let something become a habit without stopping to ask if it was fair." It wasn't a big apology. It wasn't a tear-filled reckoning. It was just a quiet, late admission from a woman who doesn't usually do those, and it meant more to me than I expected it to. "Thank you for saying that," I said. "Don't thank me," she said. "I should have seen it sooner." We talked for another hour about nothing in particular. It was the most comfortable I'd felt on the phone with her in a long time. There's something I've been sitting with since all of this happened, something I keep turning over when I can't sleep. For 6 years I gave money. I gave time. I gave tension and energy and availability. And I told myself it was love. And it was love? I don't think I was wrong about that part, but I think I confused the giving with the loving. Like the only way I knew how to prove that I cared was to keep giving, and somewhere along the way the giving became the whole point, became the thing that held my place in the family, became what I was rather than something I chose to do. That voice message, 11 seconds, sent by accident, cracked that open for me. Not because my family doesn't love me. I think they do, in the way that people love the people who are always there, the way you love something that has always just been present in your life. But love without awareness isn't the same as love that sees you. And for a long time, I was choosing a version of love that didn't require anyone to actually see me at all. I'm not sending money home anymore. My parents haven't asked me to. Marcus handles his own car. Tiffany got the retail job and just got promoted to shift supervisor, which she texted me about with 12 exclamation points, and I responded with 12 of my own. I have a bed now. An actual bed. A savings account that's growing. An apartment that I slowly started making feel like mine. A print on the wall, a plant on the windowsill, a coffee maker that actually works well. None of it is dramatic. None of it is what you'd call a revenge story, really. Nobody crashed and burned. No one lost everything. It was quieter than that. I just stopped being the thing I'd agreed to be without agreeing to it. I just started taking up the space I'd been quietly handing over for 6 years. I still love my family, I always will. But I love them differently now. From a distance that costs me something I can actually afford. I'm writing this on a Wednesday night. I just got home from work, just the one job now. And I made dinner in my own kitchen. And I'm sitting on my couch, and my apartment is quiet in a way that feels like peace rather than emptiness. My phone is on the table next to me. No new messages from my dad. Nothing from Marcus. My mom sent a photo of the neighbor's dog earlier, which is something she does now. Just little things, no agenda, no ask underneath them. I liked the photo. Sent back a heart. The dog was very cute. I'm okay. I'm genuinely okay. And I've learned that I don't need anyone else's voice in my ear, not even my family's, not even accidentally, to tell me what I'm worth. I already know. I've thought a lot about why it took 11 seconds to undo 6 years. Not a confrontation, not a fight, not someone finally sitting me down and telling me I was being taken advantage of. Just a voice message sent to the wrong person. 11 seconds of comfortable laughter. And suddenly I could see everything clearly that I hadn't let myself see before. That's the thing about patterns. They don't feel like patterns when you're inside them. They feel like personality. They feel like who you are. I thought I was generous. I thought I was dependable. And those things were true, but underneath them was something I hadn't examined. I was afraid that if I stopped giving, I would stop mattering. That the love in my family was conditional on my usefulness, and somewhere deep down I'd accepted that as the deal without ever being asked to sign anything. What I've come to understand is that this kind of dynamic doesn't happen because people are evil. My dad isn't a villain. My mom isn't calculating. Marcus and Tiffany weren't sitting around plotting how to drain me dry. What happened was quieter and more ordinary than that. A habit formed and nobody questioned it, because the habit was comfortable for most of the people involved. I was the only one it was costing, and I was too busy maintaining it to stop and ask whether it was fair. That's not a character flaw in my family. It's just what happens when one person keeps saying yes and everyone around them stops asking whether yes is actually the honest answer. The decision I made, to cancel the transfer, to stop paying Marcus's car note, to step back without a dramatic speech or an ultimatum, that came from something I'd been slowly building for years without realizing it. Every month I stayed in that small apartment, every meal I made from whatever was in the pantry, every upgrade I told myself could wait until next year, I was making a choice even if I didn't know I was making it. The capacity to finally choose differently was built out of all those smaller moments of discipline. Restraint has a way of teaching you what you actually value, if you pay attention. Tiffany told me at lunch that she didn't know how much I'd been carrying. I believe her. And I also think that if I had told her earlier, if I had told any of them earlier, things might have shifted sooner. There's a kind of false nobility in suffering quietly. I mistook my silence for strength when really it was just avoidance. Speaking up feels like conflict. It feels risky. But silence, I learned, has its own cost, and I was paying it for a long time without counting. What I want anyone to take from this, if they're sitting in a version of the same situation, is that clarity doesn't always come the way you expect it to. Sometimes it's a loud argument that breaks something open. Sometimes it's 11 seconds sent to the wrong number. However it arrives, the question it asks you is the same. Now that you can see it, what are you going to do? I got a bed frame. I started a savings account. I had an honest lunch with my sister and an overdue conversation with my dad. None of it was dramatic. All of it mattered. You don't have to burn anything down to change your life. You just have to be willing to stop doing the things that were never actually yours to do in the first place.